Italy isn't just a place. It's a feeling that sneaks into your heart the moment you hear the echo of an old church bell, taste a bite of real Italian food, or watch the sun melt over ancient rooftops. Today, I want to take you on a journey through a country that has changed the way millions of travelers see the world, and maybe, it will change something in you too. Welcome to Italy, the land that steals your heart, one breathtaking moment at a time. Rome is a city that doesn't simply exist. It remembers empires, love stories, tragedies, victories, artists, philosophers, saints, villains. And it carries all those memories in its stones, its fountains, its walls, its people. On my second morning in Rome, I woke up before sunrise. The city was still half asleep, the sky shifting from deep blue to soft gold. I walked toward the Colosseum, alone, a rare experience in a place normally crowded with thousands of visitors. As I approached, the first sunlight touched the ancient arches, revealing scars of time carved into stone. And in that half-light, the Colosseum didn't feel like a ruin. It felt alive, like a giant exhaling after centuries of silence. I stood there for a long moment, feeling something inside me go quiet. The world felt slower. My thoughts felt lighter. And everything around me seemed to whisper, relax. You're in Rome now. I began walking through the Roman Forum, the heart of the ancient empire. Broken columns, shattered temples, crumbling arches. Yet everything felt strangely whole. Not in the way it once was, but in the way ruins can still carry the full weight of their history. As I wandered through those stones, I imagined senators debating in the heat of summer, crowds cheering, merchants shouting, lovers meeting in secret corners. Rome makes imagination effortless. Here, the past doesn't sit behind museum glass, it sits beside you. Breathing, waiting, reminding you that time is both fragile and infinite, but Rome is not just ancient. It is beautifully, unapologetically alive. Later that day, as the city woke up fully, I walked through narrow streets where laundry hung between windows and the smell of espresso drifted from cafes just opening for the morning. A baker slid fresh bread out of a wood-fired oven. Children wearing tiny backpacks ran toward school, holding hands. Life in Rome feels human. Messy, loud, dramatic, but deeply, undeniably human, and that's when I realized Rome's greatest magic. Rome doesn't make you feel like a tourist. Rome makes you feel like part of the story. I remember sitting at a small cafe near Piazza Navona, watching a violinist play as artists set up easels to paint the square. A couple argued passionately about something trivial, then kissed and walked away laughing. A street dog slept under a marble fountain sculpted by Bernini. All of it, the beauty, the chaos, the imperfections, blended into a feeling I'll never forget. This city loves itself. And it invites you to love it too. That evening, I returned to the Colosseum one more time, this time in the dark, illuminated by warm golden lights. The crowd had grown, the noise was louder, but the feeling inside me remained calm, and I understood why people fall in love with Italy so easily, because Italy reminds you how alive the world can be. Because in Italy, even ancient ruins feel like they're still dreaming. And because Rome, with all its contradictions, makes you believe that beauty and brokenness can exist together and still make something unforgettable. Florence is not a place you simply visit. Florence is a place that quietly rewires the way you see the world. Long before I ever stepped foot in the city, I had seen pictures, postcards of the Duomo rising above terracotta rooftops, photos of statues worn smooth by centuries of admiration, paintings that somehow survived empires crumbling and kings falling. But nothing prepares you for Florence. Nothing. The first time I walked across the Ponte Vecchio, the morning sun was stretching across the Arno River like liquid gold. Shops selling handmade jewelry were just beginning to open, their iron shutters creaking slowly, almost reluctantly, like the city was waking from a dream it didn't want to leave. The soft clinking of metal, the murmurs of shopkeepers greeting each other, the faint smell of espresso drifting from a nearby cafe. Florence wasn't rushing. Florence never rushes. And that alone already felt like art. Every street here feels intentional, as if someone designed it not for efficiency but for emotion. Even the shadows fall in beautiful places. And as I walked deeper into the city, toward the heart of the Renaissance, I began to understand why Florence changed the world. It wasn't just that great artists lived here. It was that Florence gave them permission to imagine. The first time I stood in front of the Duomo, Brunelleschi's impossible dome that still confounds architects today, I felt small. But in a liberating way. It was as if the dome whispered, "Dream bigger." The marble facade glowed with soft morning light, and I remember tracing my hand along the cool stone, imagining the generations of hands that touched it before mine. The idea that people in the 1400s built something so magnificent without modern tools felt almost unreal. And yet, here it was, alive, breathtaking, defiant against time. Inside the cathedral, a hush settled over the crowd. Even children went quiet, as if Florence itself demanded reverence. The vastness above felt infinite, a reminder that creativity, too, has no ceiling. I sat down for a moment and simply breathed. Sometimes you don't need to analyze beauty. Sometimes you just let it wash over you, but Florence's magic isn't only in its monuments. It's in the small, intimate moments, the sound of a violin echoing under an archway, the sight of an elderly painter sketching the same corner of a piazza he's loved for 50 years, the way a barista hands you a cappuccino with a smile that feels like a warm invitation into the rhythm of the city. One afternoon, I found myself standing before Michelangelo's David. I'd seen countless photos of it online, in books, everywhere. I thought I knew what to expect. But the moment I walked into the Galleria dell'Accademia, everything inside me stopped. David wasn't a sculpture, he was a presence. Towering, luminous, impossibly alive. As I circled around him, I realized why Michelangelo once said that he did not carve statues, he simply freed them from the marble. David looked like he might inhale at any moment. His muscles held tension, his eyes locked onto an enemy only he could see. There was a heartbeat in that stone. Or maybe it was mine. Florence teaches you that art isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to be felt. And sometimes the feeling is so overwhelming that words fail you. But Florence doesn't need your words. Florence only needs your attention. Later that week, I wandered up to Piazzale Michelangelo, the hill overlooking the entire city. As the sun began to set, the rooftops seemed to glow from within. Bells rang across the valley. Couples sat along the stone wall, holding hands and watching the sky burn into shades of orange, pink, and gold. I watched as the city slowly transformed into a living painting. And for a moment, everything felt still, perfectly, impossibly still. And that's when I realized something powerful. Florence isn't beautiful by accident. Florence is beautiful because it believes beauty matters. Because it believes art matters. Because it believes the human spirit becomes better when surrounded by things created with love, passion, and intention. Florence doesn't ask you to hurry. It doesn't ask you to achieve. It simply asks you to feel. To slow down. To look closely. To notice the way sunlight lands on a wall, or the way a sculpted figure's hand curls so delicately, or how a fresco can hold centuries of longing inside a single brushstroke. And when you do, Florence steals your heart gently, almost tenderly. Not with grand gestures, but with a whisper. This is what life can feel like. By the time I left the city, I understood why artists across centuries traveled here seeking inspiration. Florence doesn't teach you how to create. Florence teaches you how to live in a way that makes creation inevitable. In Rome, I felt alive. In Florence, I felt awakened. And that is why everyone who visits Florence carries it with them forever, not as a memory, but as a quiet change in how they see the world. Venice is a miracle. A quiet rebellion against logic, against nature, against gravity itself. No matter how many photos you've seen of it, nothing prepares you for the moment you step out of the train station and the city reveals itself, floating, shimmering, impossibly real. The first thing you notice is the silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but a soft, watery silence, like the entire city is breathing beneath the surface. There are no cars, no horns, no engines roaring. Only the gentle splash of oars, the distant hum of a vaporetto, and the occasional call of a seagull drifting across the canals, walking through Venice feels like wandering into a dream you once had but forgot until now. Narrow alleyways twist like secrets. Bridges appear and disappear. Canals cut through the city like veins of light. And every turn feels like the beginning of another story, but the moment that truly stole my breath was the first time I saw the Grand Canal. I stepped out from a small alley, and suddenly the entire waterway opened in front of me, a wide, glittering river lined with palaces that looked like they belonged in a painting. Gondolas drifted by as if suspended in time. Sunlight flickered across the water like 1,000 tiny stars. It didn't feel like a real place. It felt like a memory of something ancient and magical, something humanity was not supposed to build. Yet somehow did. As I boarded a vaporetto and the boat pulled away from the dock, I realized Venice wasn't designed for sightseeing. Venice was designed for surrender. You don't explore Venice. Venice carries you. Slowly. Gently. Like a story being read aloud, I spent hours drifting along the Grand Canal, passing palaces with peeling paint and broken stone, imperfections that somehow made them more beautiful. Venice wears its age openly, with pride. Every crack, every faded fresco, every leaning balcony whispers, "We are still here." And that is the miracle, Venice exists when it should not. And it keeps existing, even though the world tries to pull it under. Later that afternoon, I wandered into the backstreets, far from the crowds of St. Mark's Square. Here, Venice felt even more intimate. Little canals no wider than an arm's pan. Laundry hanging from windows. A cat sunbathing on a doorstep. An old woman sweeping her doorway while humming an old Venetian melody. These were the real treasures of Venice, the moments you don't find on postcards, but the moment that changed me happened at sunset. I climbed the Ponte dell'Accademia and looked out over the Grand Canal again. The sun was sinking behind the domes of Santa Maria della Salute, turning the sky into a watercolor of pink, gold, and lavender. Gondolas glided across the glowing water like silhouettes in a living painting, and in that instant, Venice didn't feel like a city at all. It felt like a promise. A promise that beauty, true beauty, can survive anything: floods, time, neglect. Even the slow rise of the sea, Venice refuses to disappear. Venice chooses wonder every single day. That evening, as the streetlights flickered on and the canals turned into ribbons of reflected gold, I realized something profound. Venice may not make sense, but that is precisely why everyone falls in love with it. You don't love Venice with logic. You love it with your heart, because Venice reminds us that life's most beautiful things are often the most delicate. And that sometimes, the most extraordinary places are the ones that seem impossible. By the time I left the city, I knew something for certain: you don't just visit Venice. Venice stays with you. In the quiet moments. In the way you begin to appreciate fragile things. In the way you learn to believe in beauty again. That is why Venice should not exist. And that is exactly why it must. They say you can learn everything about a country from its food. If that's true, then Italy is a country made entirely of love. Not loud, dramatic love, the kind sung in operas or written in epic poems, but quiet, tender love. The kind you feel in your chest before you even take the first bite. My journey into the heart of Italian cuisine began in a tiny trattoria hidden behind a flower-covered alley in Naples. The restaurant had no sign, no menu posted outside, no polished presentation. Just a wooden door, the smell of tomatoes simmering, and an elderly woman sitting near the entrance peeling garlic by hand. That alone told me everything I needed to know. In Italy, food doesn't start in the kitchen. Food starts with people. The owner, a man in his 70s with silver hair and a warm smile, welcomed me like I was family returning after years abroad. "Sit," he said, waving his hand as if refusing to give me a choice. "You must be hungry. Everyone who walks in here is hungry." There was something beautiful about that confidence. He didn't need to ask what I wanted. He already knew what I needed. Minutes later, he placed a steaming plate of pasta in front of me, no decorations, no pretentious garnishes, just a generous swirl of spaghetti tossed with tomatoes, basil, and olive oil so fragrant it felt like breathing in the Italian countryside. I took the first bite. And something inside me shifted. It wasn't the taste, although it was extraordinary. It was the emotion. A sense of warmth. Of welcome. Of being cared for in a way I didn't expect. Italian food doesn't try to impress you. Italian food tries to hold you. Later that day, I was invited into the kitchen. The chef, who turned out to be the garlic-peeling grandmother from earlier, showed me how she made the sauce. There were no measurements, no timers, no high-end tools, just her hands. Her intuition. And decades of love. She told me, cooking is not about the recipe. It's about who you're cooking for. Then she tapped her heart with her fingertips. If this is empty, your plate will be empty too. That was the moment I realized why Italian food feels like falling in love. Because it is built on devotion. Every region in Italy carries its own culinary soul. In Bologna, I learned why ragu must be cooked slowly, because patience is the ingredient that makes flavors trust each other. In Florence, I tasted bistecca alla Fiorentina cooked so simply it made me rethink everything I thought I knew about steak. In Venice, I tried risotto al nero di seppia, black as midnight, tasting like the sea itself had a story to tell. And then there was Sicily. Oh, Sicily, a place where food tastes like sunlight, salt, fire, and history all at once. Granita so cold it makes your brain tingle. Cannoli so crisp it shatters like delicate glass before melting into sweetness. Pasta alla norma so fragrant with basil that it feels like breathing in summer. But the most unforgettable meal I had in Italy wasn't in a restaurant. It was in the home of a family I had met by chance. They invited me in, no hesitation, no formality, just simple generosity. As we sat around the table, they served homemade lasagna layered with love so deep it could have healed the world. While we ate, the grandmother told stories about her childhood. The father poured wine made from grapes grown just outside their village. The children laughed, fought, made up, and shared bread with me as if we'd known each other forever. And for a brief moment, I wasn't a traveler. I wasn't an outsider. I was part of something. Part of them. That is what Italian food does. It transforms strangers into family. Meals into memories. Flavors into feelings. Later that night, as I walked back through the quiet village streets, full and happy, I understood something profound. Italian food is not about ingredients. It's about intention. It's about slowing down, savoring, sharing, loving. And that is why Italian cuisine is adored around the world, not because it's complicated or refined, but because it is honest. Because it feeds not just the body, but the heart. By the time I left Italy, I realized that every unforgettable Italian dish has the same secret ingredient. Someone cared enough to make it with love. The farther north you travel in Italy, the more the landscape begins to shift. The warm, honey-colored tones of central Italy slowly fade, replaced by cool alpine air and mountains that look as if they were carved by giants. The north is a different Italy, quieter, more introspective, a place where nature speaks as loudly as history. My journey began at Lake Como. Even before I saw the water, I felt it. The air carried a softness, a kind of gentle clarity that made every breath feel fuller, easier. And then the lake revealed itself, vast, still, framed by mountains that rose like ancient guardians. The surface shimmered like glass, reflecting the pastel-colored villages that clung to the slopes as if gravity didn't apply to them. Como is the kind of place that makes you understand why poets lose sleep, why artists travel across continents seeking inspiration. There is something otherworldly about the silence here. It's not empty, it's rich, layered, like a symphony played softly. Boats drift across the water without disturbing the peace. Villas with centuries of stories stand proudly among trees that have witnessed seasons come and go. One morning, I took a ferry across the lake. The sun had just risen, turning the water into liquid gold. As we moved slowly across the surface, I watched the mountains brighten one by one, their peaks catching fire with the first light of day. There was no rush, no noise. Just the subtle hum of the boat and the sound of water brushing against its hull. I found myself thinking, this is what serenity feels like, but Lake Como is only the beginning. Farther north, the Dolomites rise like jagged dreams, sharp, dramatic, almost unreal. Driving toward them felt like moving into a painting. The road curled through forests and valleys, opening occasionally to reveal views so vast they made my heart ache. These mountains don't just stand, they command. I stayed in a small village tucked between two peaks. The houses were made of wood and stone, with flower boxes overflowing from every window. Church bells echoed across the valley. Cows grazed lazily on hillsides that tilted like theater seats facing a spectacular stage. This part of Italy feels untouched by time. Traditions are not preserved, they are lived. Each evening, villagers gathered in the town square. Children ran freely, playing games older than electricity. Elderly men sat on benches sharing stories in dialects I had never heard before. No one rushed. No one seemed distracted. Life was simple, and yet full. One afternoon, a local man named Matteo invited me on a hike. He was in his 60s but moved with the energy of someone half his age. "The mountains keep you young," he told me, laughing as we climbed a trail that wound its way through forests of pine and larch. The higher we climbed, the more the world fell away. The air grew thinner, cooler. Birds soared above us like tiny shadows against towering walls of stone. When we finally reached a plateau overlooking the valley, I felt my breath catch. The view was indescribable, layers of mountains stretching endlessly, each one fading into softer shades of blue. Matteo stood beside me, quiet for a moment. Then he said something I will never forget: "People come here to see the mountains. But the mountains, they ask you to see yourself." And in that silence, high above the world, I understood what he meant. There is something humbling about standing before such old, unmoving giants. They make your troubles feel smaller, your fears quieter, your dreams clearer. Later in my journey, I traveled to South Tyrol, a region where Italian, Austrian, and Ladine cultures blend seamlessly. The food, the architecture, the music, even the language shifts from village to village. It's a reminder that identities can coexist beautifully, that borders don't define people, stories do. I visited a tiny village perched on a cliffside, its stone houses clustered together like a family keeping warm. In the late afternoon, the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. Women in traditional dresses carried baskets from door to door, sharing loaves with neighbors. Children chased each other between orchards heavy with apples. And as the sun set, painting the mountains in shades of rose and violet, the entire village seemed to glow from within. There was a warmth here, quiet, steady, unobtrusive. A warmth that doesn't demand attention, but lingers long after you've gone. Before leaving the north, I spent one final morning sitting beside a small alpine lake. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the sky like a polished mirror. I dipped my hand into the icy surface and felt a jolt, sharp, refreshing, awakening. In that moment, I realized something: Italy's north teaches you about peace. Not the peace that comes from silence, but the peace that comes from being exactly where you are meant to be. And as I watched the mountains rise above me, ancient and unshakable, I understood why so many travelers say that the north heals you, slowly, gently, without asking for anything in return. This land doesn't try to impress. It simply exists, majestic, timeless, patient. And somehow, in its presence, you remember who you are. The farther south you travel in Italy, the more the country begins to feel like a heartbeat, faster, louder, fuller. If the north is made of silence and mountains, the south is made of fire and open skies. Nothing here is subtle. The colors, the voices, the emotions, they rise and fall like waves breaking on ancient shores. My journey into the south began in Naples, a city that refuses to apologize for its intensity. From the moment I stepped onto the street, I could feel the energy vibrating through the air. Scooters zigzagged between cars with supernatural confidence. Vendors shouted in markets overflowing with lemons the size of fists. Laundry danced from balconies overhead like flags declaring the presence of life. Real life, Naples does not pretend. Naples lives boldly. I wandered into the Quartiere Spagnoli, a dense maze of narrow alleyways painted with murals and crowded with the everyday rituals of the city. Men played cards in doorways. Women leaned from balconies gossiping across the street. Children ran barefoot, their laughter echoing off stone walls stained by time and stories. In Naples, everything you feel is magnified. Hunger feels deeper. Smiles feel warmer. And when the sun sets and the city lights flicker on, Naples becomes something else entirely, a celebration of survival, of joy, of chaos woven into beauty. Of course, no journey to Naples is complete without tasting its greatest gift to the world, pizza. Not the pizza you find in fast food chains, not the overly complicated versions served on expensive plates, real Neapolitan pizza. A dough so soft it feels like a cloud, a crust charred by fire, tomatoes bright as jewels, mozzarella that melts the moment it hits the heat. I remember taking my first bite at a tiny pizzeria no larger than a living room. The chef watched me closely, as if my reaction mattered more than the food itself. And when I closed my eyes and smiled, he nodded with pride. "This," he said, "is Naples." But the South is not only Naples. A few days later, I boarded a ferry heading toward Sicily, a land where myth and reality blur beneath the shadow of volcanoes. As the boat cut through the Tyrrhenian Sea, the island appeared slowly on the horizon, rising from the water like something ancient waking from sleep. Sicily is raw, wild, unapologetically alive. When I arrived in Palermo, the air was thick with the scent of citrus and street food. The markets buzzed like living creatures, vendors frying arancini, slicing swordfish, shouting prices with operatic flair. It felt like entering a theater where everyone was both actor and audience, but beyond the noise and color lies a deeper Sicily, a Sicily shaped by centuries of conquerors and cultures. Greek temples stand beside Arab domes. Norman mosaics glow inside cathedrals that feel like time machines. Streets twist through neighborhoods shaped by empires long fallen, yet still present in every stone. One afternoon, I traveled east to Mount Etna, Europe's most active volcano. The closer I got, the more the landscape transformed, lush vineyards giving way to black volcanic rock, fields of wildflowers standing defiantly against the ash. Etna loomed above everything, a reminder that Sicily is a land constantly being created and destroyed by the same force. Standing on its slopes, feeling the warmth rising from the earth beneath my feet, I understood why people say Sicily has a soul of fire. It is a place born from contradiction, beauty and danger, destruction and rebirth. A land that teaches you how to stand firm, even when the ground shifts below you. But Sicily's heart reveals itself most beautifully at dusk. I found myself in Taormina, perched high above the sea, as the sun melted into the horizon. The ancient Greek theater behind me glowed in the fading light, its arches still echoing with ghosts of performances long past. Below, the waves rolled gently toward the shore, their rhythm steady, eternal. As I watched the sky turn shades of gold, lavender, and deep blue, I felt something powerful, something I hadn't expected. The south of Italy doesn't just show you beauty. It confronts you with emotion. Here, people love fiercely. They argue loudly. They laugh without restraint. They live with a rawness that can feel overwhelming at first, but eventually becomes addictive. In the South, nothing is done halfway. A meal is not a meal, it is a declaration of affection. A conversation is not small talk, it is connection. A sunset is not just a sunset, it is a reminder that life burns brightly and briefly. Before leaving Sicily, I visited a tiny fishing village along the coast. Boats rested on the sand, painted in bright blues and reds. Elderly fishermen repaired their nets with hands shaped by decades of salt and sun. Children played soccer beside piles of seashells. The smell of grilled fish drifted through the air. A fisherman invited me to sit with him. We shared a simple meal: bread, olives, tomatoes still warm from the sun. He poured me wine from a bottle he kept in a cooler and said, "In the South, we give what we have. Not because we must, but because it is who we are." And in that moment, I understood the truth of the South. it is not perfect. It is not polished. But it is real. Vibrant. Honest. Alive, as I watched the waves crash gently against the rocks. I realized something profound: the south of Italy does not ask you to admire it. The south of Italy asks you to feel it, and once you do, you carry its fire with you forever. If Italy has taught me anything, it is this: life is not meant to be survived. Life is meant to be lived, fully, deeply, joyfully. The Italians call it la dolce vita, the sweet life, but it is not about luxury or indulgence. It is a philosophy, a way of moving through the world with intention, presence, and appreciation. My journey into Italy's way of loving life began not in a city, but at a simple cafe table in a sunlit piazza. I had ordered a cappuccino, and then waited. And waited. Not because the service was slow, but because the barista insisted on perfection. He crafted each cup as if it were a gift, not a transaction, when he finally placed the cappuccino before me. He said, "You must drink slowly. Otherwise it is wasted." I laughed, thinking he was joking. But he wasn't. To him, the moment mattered as much as the drink, and suddenly, I understood something powerful. In Italy, time is not an enemy. Time is an ingredient. Every moment has flavor. Every pause has purpose. Later that afternoon, I wandered through a small market in Florence. The vendors weren't simply selling produce, they were sharing stories. A man handed me a tomato and said, "Taste it. This is what summer feels like." Another offered a slice of pecorino cheese, explaining which shepherd made it and what the sheep had eaten that spring. Food was not just food. It was a connection between land, people, memory, and emotion. That evening, I met a group of friends sitting around a fountain in the Altrano district. They invited me to join them without hesitation. We talked about travel, love, mistakes, dreams. At one point, someone asked, "Why do people abroad rush all the time? Where are they running to?" No one answered. We simply sat there, listening to the sound of water flowing from the fountain. Italy teaches you to stop asking where you are going, and to start noticing where you are. The next day, I traveled to a vineyard in Tuscany. Rows of vines lined the hills like green waves. The owner, an elderly woman named Sophia, welcomed me with a hug, the kind of hug you give to someone you've already forgiven for everything. She guided me through her vineyard as if she were introducing me to old friends. She touched the leaves lovingly, explained how each vine had its own personality, its own needs. Wine, she told me, is not made in a bottle. Wine is made in the patience of the seasons. In her cellar, she poured me a glass of Chianti. The aroma was rich, earthy, familiar. She raised her own glass, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Alla vita, to life. Not to success, not to achievement, not even to happiness. Simply life." I asked her what la dolce vita meant to her. Sophia smiled softly. La dolce vita is not sweet because everything is easy. It is sweet because we allow ourselves to taste it. That sentence settled into me like warmth spreading through my chest. In the days that followed, I began to see la dolce vita everywhere. I saw it in the way an elderly couple held hands while walking through a park in Milan. I saw it in the way a father lifted his child onto his shoulders at a crowded festival. I saw it in the way shopkeepers closed their stores in the afternoon, not to rest, but to live, to eat, to be human. Italy is not obsessed with productivity. Italy is obsessed with presence. One evening in Rome, I returned to Piazza Navona, where the air seemed to shimmer with golden light. Street artists painted portraits, musicians played violins, and children ate gelato with faces full of joy. I sat down on a stone bench and watched the world unfold like a warm, familiar story. A musician nearby began playing a slow, romantic melody. A young couple started dancing in the middle of the square, surrounded by people who clapped along. No one filmed it. No one rushed. Everything simply was. And that was enough. At that moment, I realized, Italians do not love life because it is perfect. Italians love life because they embrace its imperfections. They argue loudly, forgive quickly, laugh freely, and savor deeply. They live in a way that invites you to feel everything: the joys, the sorrows, the stillness, the fire, and somewhere along the way, you begin to feel it too. As my journey through Italy drew closer to its end, I understood why people say the country stays with you long after you leave. It's because Italy gives you something priceless, a reminder of how to be alive, not half alive, not almost alive, but fully, unapologetically alive. The Italian way of loving life is simple, but profound: drink slowly, walk often, eat with gratitude, laugh loudly, love deeply, and above all, never forget the sweetness that is already in front of you. La dolce vita isn't something you chase. It's something you choose. Italy is not a place you leave behind. It is a place that follows you, quietly, gently, persistently, long after your plane takes off and the last trace of Mediterranean sunlight fades from your window. Some countries you remember. Italy is a country you feel. On my final morning in Italy, I walked through a quiet street in Rome before sunrise. The cobblestones were still damp from the night air, reflecting the soft glow of the street lamps. For once, the city felt still. No scooters, no hurried footsteps, no sound except my own as I wandered toward the Tiber River, and as I crossed the old stone bridge, I realized something simple but profound: Italy had changed me, not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, the same way dawn changes the color of the sky. So gently you don't notice it happening. Until suddenly everything looks different. Italy does that. It doesn't try to. It just lives so fully that it reminds you how full your own life could be. I thought back to Rome, to the Colosseum glowing gold at night, to the laughter in tiny cafes, to the way people argued with passion and hugged with the same intensity 5 minutes later. Rome had reminded me that history is not the past. History is every moment that shapes who we become. I remembered Florence, where beauty felt endless, where a single statue could make the world fall silent, where the weight of the Renaissance still lingers in the air, urging you to imagine something bigger than yourself. I remembered Venice, fragile, floating, impossible. A city that should not exist, yet does. A city that teaches you that miracles are not always loud. Sometimes they glide quietly on water. I remembered the mountains of the north, majestic, ancient, indifferent to the rush of time. Mountains that make you see yourself clearly because they refuse to move for anyone. I remembered the fire of the south, Naples alive with color and noise, Sicily rising proudly beneath the shadow of volcanoes, carrying centuries of survival and strength in every street, every bite of food, every sunset that sets the sky ablaze. And above all, I remembered the people, the way they loved life. Not in the abstract, but in the small rituals, the perfect coffee, the shared meal, the conversations that happen because someone simply chooses to care. Italy changes you because it teaches you to feel again. It reminds you that beauty is not something to glance at, it is something to absorb. That food is not something to consume, it is something to share. That time is not something to chase, it is something to honor. That life is not something to endure, it is something to taste. On that final morning, as the first sunlight broke across the river, I sat on the stone railing and watched the city wake up. Slowly, softly, gracefully, the way Italy always does. A woman walked by with fresh flowers in her arms. A baker opened his shop, releasing the warm scent of bread into the air. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang, just once, like a quiet reminder that the world was beginning again. And I understood, in that moment, what Italy had truly given me: presence, gratitude, wonder, a softness toward life that I hadn't realized I'd lost. Italy teaches you that the world is still full of magic, not the kind you search for, but the kind you allow yourself to notice. The way light touches water. The way voices echo through narrow streets. The way a simple meal can feel like a celebration. As I stood to leave, I whispered a promise to myself, to carry this feeling wherever I went. To live more slowly. To savor more deeply. To love more openly. To remember that beauty doesn't ask for perfection, only appreciation, and before I turned away, I looked at the river one last time and understood the final truth Italy had been trying to tell me. You don't travel to Italy to see the country. You travel to Italy to remember yourself, and that is why Italy changes everyone who visits, because Italy doesn't just show you the world. Italy shows you your heart.